Well, hey friends, welcome to the Equipping Podcast from Citylight Church in Omaha. Our goal is to help you grow in wisdom and love for God and others. We hope this episode encourages you in your walk with God. So we made it. We did it.
This is it. This is the last.
This is the last one.
Second to last, but also the last chapter of Glittering Vices.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. We skipped ahead last week and did lust, so we're coming back to gluttony this week. Right. And gluttony is a disorder of desire for food in particular. And we'll get into it a little bit more.
Just a very high level reminder for everybody. Glittering Vices is talking about this, the word you're familiar with is probably the 7 deadly sins.
Yep.
Although we're talking more specifically about cardinal vices, meaning root cause or root sort of capital vices, main habits that incline us, habits of the soul that incline us towards sin. The vice isn't specifically sin itself, but it inclines us toward sinful activity.
To be technical, I would say the vice is sinful, but not itself sin, since sin is an act.
Right.
And these vices are qualities of our how
we're
arranged.
We're bent toward them. Yeah, exactly.
And they're not a fixed state. Like you could actually become more bent towards a vice or less bent towards a vice. So that's an important presupposition of this book is that actually formation is possible.
Important presupposition of your book. In your book, you talk a lot about plasticity, and that part of the whole thing is to practice and to live in and be in virtuous behavior, which can incline us toward the ability. I think in your example in your book, you talk about dealing with anxiety. But
that's right. Yeah. Get your copy today.
Yeah. The Logic of the Body by Reverend Dr. Mr. Dr. Matthew.
I'd prefer the German, Herr Doktor.
Matthew Lapine.
Anyway, let's talk about gluttony. So as with most of the other ones, she begins by talking about how it's commonly misunderstood. So she's saying that gluttony is not the same thing as obesity.
Right. Which is kind of like, I don't know if you. I don't think we've recommended this movie in this series on this, but like the movie 7 is a movie about serial killers, a serial killer killing people along the lines of the 7 deadly sins. So he's mimicking one of them. Okay. And mimicking all of them. And anyway, very violent. I'm not recommending it. Very, very bad language. Very, very dark movie. That said, the classic, the picture of gluttony is the extremely obese person in our modern culture. But that might be somebody who is struggling with this.
Right.
Maybe,
but maybe not.
But it's not what this means. These are not synonymous.
Yeah. And I think that it's, maybe just even from the outset, just to say a bit there's potentially 2 problems with that. Number one, there's all sorts of reasons that people, abuse food that actually we could just give compassionate reasons for. So I mean, what this is relatively common with people who are women who are victims of sexual abuse. Some seems to be some sort of unconscious coping
mechanism
to make themselves invisible in the world. Right?
And going back to what we just said about the cardinal vices, if you want to put them that way, like you could place murder along any of these. If they're branches on a tree, you could place murder, the sinful act of murder along. I did it for greed. I did it for lust. I did it for anger, rage, whatever. That's the same thing for any of these things. Like it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, gluttony is the thing of Like you said, there's trauma that can cause us to do things. There's other motivations that can cause us to do things. There's inability. There's hormonal issues that people can really struggle with, and things like that.
So the second thing, though, I was going to say, the second reason why I think it's wrong to just associate it with obesity is because actually, much like acedia or sloth, she defined that as sort of having a way of understanding it which was underworking and overworking, because she's resistance to the demands of love. And in this same way, in this one, because gluttony is at its core an excessive desire for food in the wrong way, there's at least
sort of please yourself or satisfy yourself with your food. Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean by eating lots and lots of it.
So it's not, we're not saying, look, gluttony is obesity, which is the opposite of being, super healthy. because actually there could be ways of going wrong in
Being super healthy.
in being super thin too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
well, and he pulled out Screw Tape Letters, or she pulled out an example from Screw Tape Letters of C.S. Lewis, where he talked about the nitpicky, the person who will only eat just exactly this, and could you send it back and cook it a little bit differently? And
all I want is just a decent cup of tea and a decent piece of toast.
But this person is also chasing a perfect food instead of a quantity of food or speed of food. They're chasing a perfect food
so you
as a means of being satisfied.
You can think of, your designer foods that have just the right taste and have all the healthy ingredients and all that. And then you're also, the other half of that is that in America, unhealthy food is cheaper.
Yeah.
And so you could tend towards obesity simply because you're eating the food that's available to you. Right. And so it's important to kind of put that on the table.
It's just not as simple as the person who is fat is the one who struggles with gluttony in this room.
Yeah. Right.
Or whatever the case may be. Right?
Here's her definition. Her definition is this: a habitual quest for pleasure or satisfaction without regard for how God meant the gift to be enjoyed, no matter what the consequences are for ourselves and for others. So this without regard for how God meant the gift to be enjoyed, this could work in a lot of different ways. Fastidiously, like I only eat this. I need it cooked perfectly right.
Right.
Excessively.
Right.
Like I'm going to eat all of it. Or sumptuously, like I only eat certain types of tastes.
Right.
Like I
only eat the finest foods.
Exactly.
I demand to have a better version of this.
Don't give me that well done steak that's dry or ravenously. Like
and so in this case, the inclination of gluttony may cause you to do things like being inhospitable and being a bad guest, being a bad host, being the kind of person who doesn't accept and take care of and accept the food that's placed in front of you. Yeah,
and that gets to this idea of receiving it as intended too, right? Like we talked a little bit about this, but the gifts of God, which every good thing is from God. There's no good thing that doesn't come from God's wisdom and joy in giving them to us. But the gift is meant to be a channel for us to receive the goodness of the giver, right? And so there is a way that it's designed to be received, right? And also the mention of hospitality. One thing I appreciate about this chapter was talking about. She mentioned in passing about how monks who are fasting, actually, when they have a guest come, their rule was that they needed to break their fast to be a good host. And so, food. There's a lot of different occasions and different moments and different social aspects to food. I mean, she talks also just about like the vocational call that you might have. Like you're engaging in eating in a different way if you're a Marine or if you're the president of the United States and you have to entertain
I thought of
guests.
I have no idea if this story is true. Okay. So if there's somebody out there listening to this and like, nah, that was all nonsense. I don't know. This is a little while ago. There was a controversy. Everybody likes to get upset about everything on Twitter, right?
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. I don't know if it was. I don't even know if it was. I don't know if it was a controversy or not. But it's funny to me. It's funny. Lizzo, are you familiar with Lizzo? She's a rapper. She's a large lady.
No.
Okay.
But okay.
She's a very large lady. It came out like what she eats, like the buffet that needs to be put in front of her.
Yeah.
And this was look at, she's a pig was the idea, right? It was like, look at this, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But the answer, somebody came back out and it was her nutritionist. And first off, the picture was like the thing for the whole crew, the food for the whole crew. But besides that, she laid out basically what Lizzo does eat, and it was an enormous amount of food. And then she showed us the calories that she goes through because she does a concert, and she's an extremely, extremely active woman on it. And these, it's one of these, like Beyonce, very active concerts where they're doing all this stuff, changing clothes.
I got no idea how people sing moving around that much. Yeah.
And they basically the person was like, she went through, I forget how many it was something like 5,000 calories in a concert or something. And she's like, I challenge you to try and eat that.
Right.
I challenge anyone to, so speaking of vocation, it's going to be different, right?
Yeah,
like an athlete who's training for a very specific setting is going to eat a very specific thing, and in that case the right food is different than somebody. There's purpose behind the food we eat.
That's good. So she gives, in terms of how this can get distorted, she gives a 5, like an acronym, right? FRESH is the acronym,
right? And it was an update to an old, like a ditty or a poem or something, right? The poem was originally too daintily, too sumptuously, too hastily, too greedily, too much, and apparently people knew that. She's like, I don't know if there was a musical thing to it or not, but it's this little old-timey ditty, and basically refresh is a replacement of that, but it covers the same territory. And so fortunately for our modern sensibilities, fresh is an acronym, so you can remember it easier.
Absolutely.
As opposed to
works well in English.
Daintily, sumptuously, hastily, greedily, and much.
Yeah, so fastidiously, that's too picky. Ravenously, too greedy.
Right.
Excessively, too much. Sumptuously, too richly. And hastily, too quickly or too soon. I have to have it.
Ravenously, excessively, and hastily are the ones that we would picture when we picture gluttony, right? If I was trying to draw a glutton on a picture of a glutton, you'd picture you'd shoveling food in, large piles of food all around them. Those are the classics. But
we don't think about fastidiously and sumptuously, do we?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good. It's a useful way to look at it because it does sort of help you expand out and think through and be like, well, actually, what the more useful one to me was, the more useful than any of those. Yeah. And you mentioned this when we were talking about this to prepare, but she talked about when you're in the thrall of gluttony, the glutton is left cold by spiritual goods. I think was a quote that she wrote. Yeah. And one of my favorite things about this book in general is the sort of having hooks to hang your ideas on, learning vocabulary, learning words, and being able to say, oh, I understand that is exactly how I'm feeling in this situation. That's, that's envy. And A, it's a sin, and B, it's going to cause me to do other things, and it's destructive, and it's because of this and this and this. And finally, it's also something I can act on. I can take action about envy. Same thing with this is like that being left cold by spiritual goods. Yes. Is something that, as I was thinking through
it's a diagnostic that you can use.
You can look at this and go, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, I mean, there's so many moments in life where I've come to the realization that, like, here I am enjoying this thing, and I'm not giving thanks for it, right? And this is maybe the opposite angle on this, but basically the idea is, I think that the tendency is to get wrapped up in the gift in a really profound way, like we're just deep in it, and I think that what this does is it gives us a new lens or a new way of looking at it, like actually maybe your preference that you have to have just the right thing may actually signal something about your relationship to food that's spiritually concerning. Like you've got something set in front of you, and it's not quite right, and yet maybe actually someone who has a great appreciation for spiritual goods and who is deeply looking to God for the sustenance would say, what a blessing this is. Right. Even though it's not quite right. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this gives us a new lens.
Yeah. Joe in his sermon this last week was preaching on John 6, and specifically talking about Jesus talking about I am the bread, and whoever comes to me will not hunger or feed on. It culminates in feed on my flesh, which is a very alarming
Eat me,
passage. Very alarming passage for his followers. And for future followers, like Christians got accused of being cannibals or cannibalistic in their ritualistic stuff. Yeah. But I think Joe made the point that you're making really well in his sermon, and just the heart of like looking for we almost many of the sins are just a matter of us getting caught up in the gift and not the giver, and asking, would we be willing to give up the gift for the
Yep.
giver? And if we can't see that, if we can't say yes to that, then we're stuck on something, right? She mentions that fasting is one of the benefits of fasting is that it highlights what you are, what you're owned by, what you're being mastered by, and I think that's a really good. I think gluttony is sort of the flip side of that, but the fasting as one of the remedial tools is is broader than that. It helps you recognize that I'm mastered by my snack schedule. I'm mastered by my sleep schedule.
Well, and she talks about her snack schedule too. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a really cool part of the book where she's basically coming to realize how gluttonous she is. Yeah. And I would say, in general, with all of these, do I have a problem with that one? Yes. This absolutely is the case also. But in general, there's this really big question that we're wrestling with now in a few different of these, which is, what is the relationship between God's gifts and God in terms of what the gifts are meant to do and where we will find ultimate satisfaction, right? I don't know if you just cited this or if I was just thinking about it, but Jesus, when he's in the wilderness, he goes through the temptation. He's 40 days in the wilderness. I think he goes through essentially the core 3 temptations that Israel failed with. So he's reliving Israel's history in the wilderness, 40 days, 40 years. But Satan tempts him to turn stones into bread, right? And his response is from Deuteronomy, which he says, God tested your fathers in the wilderness so that they would learn that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And it's fascinating, but just because like we have to realize that both the giving and the withholding are meant to do the same thing,
right?
Which is to point us to the fact that God is is the one that we rely on and most deeply find our rest and satisfaction in.
Right.
Like we set them against each other, but when it's given to us, it's meant to say, thank you, praise you for that gift. When it's withheld, it's meant to say, we need you, right? So I mean, in a sense, when we fast, we're going through the wilderness temptation. We're just voluntarily entering into it.
We're choosing to experience that and remember that and I think it's like running your hands over like wood. I used to do wood crafting with 4-H and stuff. It's like running your hands over and feeling the burr and being like, oh, this part still needs some work, right? Fasting really does that very quickly. That to me was probably the most startling sort of revelation for some fasting that I did relatively recently. Was you could say it was being mastered by snacks or a snack schedule, but it wasn't even exactly that. It was mostly like the realization that when I'm bored, I eat something. Yeah. And sort of the question was like, well, what should I do? Yeah. Right? And it was just the realization of how little, how little drive or creativity I had to do anything on my own, when I'm isolated in this space. It's like, well, if there's not something to eat and there's not something to look at, then should I go to sleep? I don't know. Right. Do I shut down? What do I do here?
Well, right? and I mean, it probably would be healthiest for all of us in those moments to get like a blank piece of paper out and be like, okay, here are my options. But we just basically say, how can I feel better? How can I get out of
and
this?
The spiritual fasting answer is to pray. But like it was just a huge spotlight on like there are these gaping holes in my day that I am switching to autopilot, and the way I'm switching to autopilot is by snacking on some Cheez-Its or something. Like those are this weird autopilot button for me. Which is just, it was weird. It was a weird realization. It is a weird realization. I wouldn't say I'm through it per se, but like thinking about it.
So this particular topic has a lot in common.
No offense to Cheez-Its.
I'm sure none taken by the Cheez-Its.
So when she in her chapter she mentions Diet Coke or Coke Zero and gum, which I thought was interesting.
Sure.
Because she does kind of center in on this idea that America has created the ability to eat without being full,
get tastes without,
which is
with
pretty
no nutritional value. You can't even what am I trying to say? Digest the nutrients.
And so, but it's funny because I don't want to be like, the 4 people who listen to this, one of them eats gum and the other one drinks Diet Coke. I hate to rag on our two of our 4 listeners. But it is an interesting perversity, right? Like this, like, well, what am I drinking this Coke for if it does nothing? What am I eating this? What am I chewing this gum for if it does nothing? Like, it's to occupy myself. It's to not do something else.
Yeah. Well, so I was about to say this chapter has a lot in common with the last video we did about lust, because there's let's count them. Both of them can be addictive, right?
Yeah, very related to this dopamine hit stuff that we deal with.
Both of them are extremely pleasurable and a primary blessing that God's given us. I mean, she says in the chapter that in Aquinas' views, the more necessary something is, the more pleasurable God makes it, right? Well, these are both really necessary, right? But they also have this structure that we end up misusing them without their intended ends, which are health.
The example
sustenance
to help us see how we might misuse sex. We were looking at what would a society look like if it food,
exactly,
the way we abuse sex. So they're very similar, right? They're physical needs that are drawn into this. Yeah,
right. And then the last one is that they do damage to self and to others and to our relationship with God, right? And I think that's what we've been saying. Like, there's something about gluttony that makes us spiritually insensitive.
Right.
Like we turn to it for our hope and comfort in that moment.
Yeah.
But it also obviously can have tremendous health impact on us, but it also can interfere with our relationship with others in significant ways.
Yeah.
We maybe not as extreme as maybe sex or alcohol or something like that can, but
sure.
But I think I was the reason I brought that up though is I do want to talk about addiction again. Just if this is the only video you ever watch of us, just to say, like, there is something. Addiction is a tough topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Partly because it mostly begins in shame of some sort. Like there's an element of pain that's present.
It seems to be a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And so in order to talk about it, you almost certainly have to talk about the thing that you're coping for.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and talking about things that you're coping for.
Where did that pain come from? And what is it?
It's hard. The whole point of coping for something is that it's easier to do that than to deal with it.
And pain has a lot of forms. It could be other imposed. It could be self-imposed. It can just be suffering.
Just environment. Yeah. Just life.
So there's pain. There's something then that makes you feel better for the short term, for the moment. Right. And that thing generally, the more pleasurable it is, the more hooks it has to get me to come back to it over and over again, which then causes addiction, which puts me into a shame cycle. Maybe I struggle with my weight, or I do destructive things sexually because I'm hooked in it, And so my formula is pain, something that masks it, the hooks equals the addiction. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying that addiction is sinful, but I'm also trying to present a model that says, look, the pain is real, the suffering's real, and suffering is meant to have an effect on you, which makes you, again, cry out. That's what fasting does for us. Cry out to God, Lord, I need you. I'm dependent on you, not on this food, not on this thing that I'm running to.
Right. And in that sense, the coping mechanism, whether it's addiction, like whether it's something like substance abuse or eating or sex or whatever, the coping mechanism is our vicious, vice-oriented mechanism to avoid going to God in need. Right? It's so the vice then is is us refusing to use the.
It's a sort of self-salvation.
Yeah. To use the out that we were given, which was to ask for help.
Yeah. So three other. One other thing to mention would be Augustine's sort of guidelines for knowing whether eating is appropriate. Right. if you have a thing put in front of you, the questions to ask might be, number one, is this conducive to health?
Right.
Like, is this going to bring about bodily good for me, or is it going to damage my body? And again, you can read other people on this. Probably my favorite book is on this is the theology cookbook called I think it's the Supper of the Lamb.
Okay.
The Supper of the
Do
Lamb.
they have a supper where do they tell you how to make lamb in this
Yes.
theology cook? Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Feels like that would be a real.
I'm 90% sure that that's true. I do know that they have that Austin Farrar Capon has a long section about how to cut an onion.
Okay.
And it's a worshipful reflection on onion cutting. I'm serious.
Does it bring
It's
a tear to your eye?
amazing. Yeah, it does. And anyway, he draws this distinction between feral and festal eating, which I think is important.
Okay.
So feral eating would be your everyday average eating that you need for your health to sustain you.
To sustain the body.
But there's also feasting. And feasting.
So feral, like the way an animal would eat. An animal eats to sustain its body.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know what the linguistic. I don't even know what that word means. I'm just repeating him here. But
no, I love it.
the other one is feasting though, and feasting again. I think this is one of the problems in America is that shows our gluttony is that we tend to feast more than we should. Right. That there was rhythms of Old Testament life, for instance, where you went through the seasons of heavy work.
Yeah.
And then at the end you feasted
together
to celebrate God's blessing,
right.
to give praise back to him. So a feast is an act of praise,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he distinguishes between the two. And so there may be things that are appropriate to eat for your health in feasting time, but not as a pattern of everyday life. So that's my caveat on that. But get the book, the Supper of the Lamb. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Theology cookbook.
like
One of one in its genre. Yeah. His second criteria is the people we live with. So, our eating habits should serve justice, hospitality, generosity, and fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
So if we need to have the last portion, or we don't, we're not sensitive to the needs or demands of other people, or even we keep foods in the house that are going to tempt other people to sin. Probably why my wife doesn't buy Doritos for me.
For my sake.
For your sake, yes. And then finally, and this is where she got into like the different things that people do, but like our vocation. Does this food help my vocation before God?
Right.
There's going to be lots of different types of eating which will sustain vocation.
Yeah. She uses the example of the MRE from the Marines, right? Like this. It's a food on mission.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys, the guys in a different circumstance, in a different setting could have a feast even, right? But there's a purpose for what they're eating and how they're eating it. Yeah. So I actually thought, I don't know if that leads us into like the applications or the ways to combat gluttony that she.
Yeah.
But I thought that I think the obvious one, like if you've been listening to any of these, you could probably guess fasting is going to be a starting point.
Yep.
Which I thought was really great. But I like the nuance that she put into fasting in this section, which was fasting communally, fasting as a people.
Sure,
it was more than just.
Yep.
It was more than just saying I'm not going to eat for these 2 days.
And also feasting communally.
Yeah. And I think that was, I think that kind of going back to what you were saying about doing it on purpose and with people, the people that you're with and the purpose that it's for.
Yep.
Fasting communally and feasting communally, well, I think both have the effect of, I think I haven't done the fasting communally, but I would imagine that they both would have the effect of hammering home this awareness together of being hospitable towards each other, taking care of each other, caring about each other, but also together being able to set aside and neglect certain elements so that you can pray together, things like this. So,
and it certainly seems to me, I don't have enough historical chops to say this, but it certainly seems like even the Lord's Supper was more like a feast than it is for us.
Yeah.
For us, it's a tiny little morsel and a sip of grape
Yeah.
juice.
1 Corinthians certainly seems to imply that there's, he's telling people how not to get drunk and things like this, which is more than what we're drinking. I get what soaks into a piece of bread, so that's probably not enough for even a child to get drunk, even if it was wine.
Right. But the fasting feasting rhythm, I think, is, again, it goes back to this. We voluntarily enter into abstaining so that we say, I need you. And then we voluntarily enter into this sort of celebration of God's blessing and giving thanks to say, I need you, and we give thanks. Yeah. And so there's something really beautiful about that interplay between the two, and like you just said, doing it together, that is really beautiful.
I think something, it's kind of going back to the sermon the other day from John 6. I think something that was interesting about that to me, let's see if I can draw the line here and put it all together. It brought into mind the idea of fasting and feasting, and the idea of caring more about the gift giver than the gift, even to the point of saying, I would rather not eat but have Christ.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You and I have talked before about how martyrdom is or was a primal value of the church. Primal. Yeah. But when we say martyrdom, I don't necessarily mean, it does mean dying for the church, for Christ, but I don't necessarily mean dying for Christ. It means setting aside and saying, I would rather have Christ than than anything, right? And so for the classic martyr, the person in the arena with the lion or the burning at the stake, in that case, it's I would rather have Christ than my life. Yeah. But it could also mean I'd rather have Christ than this sandwich. Right? Yeah. No, that's perfect. Yeah. I would rather neglect this my physical.
I have the old hymn running through. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold.
Yeah, and that's part of it is just saying. And so fasting helps us say, I'd like to set this stuff aside for a little while to remind myself that I would rather have. So fasting is part of a tradition of martyrdom, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we need a faith where martyrdom, giving up your life for the sake of Christ, is doesn't just make sense, but is
practical.
Is something that everybody's like,
it's routine.
That's the logical extent to which we go, and so then that we work that way down into everyday life decisions.
It's like, you know how they would say like, sometimes you hear somebody say they should preach the gospel, and if necessary, say it too, or something like that.
Use words,
something like that. Use words. This is like, you should martyr yourself every day, and if necessary, die too. Right? Like it's something like that. It's like the martyrdom involves like laying down your life or I don't know. Like I remember.
But this is why the Lord's Supper is such a powerful thing, right? Is because like we're desperately trying to hold this tension between like renouncing all earthly goods on one side, or just getting buried in all earthly goods. Right. Like we give thanks, and we live with restraint. Yeah, right.
And most Christians will run between these two their whole life.
But at the Lord's Supper, it brings together the fact that actually this bread and this wine is His body. Like it's this powerful coming together of food and what we need, like that food represents Him. It's His body, and so as we take it in, we're reminded that He is our food. In a much more powerful way than they even learned in Deuteronomy. You know, and I think maybe that's where we leave it. Is just like here's the point: we need God. Right. We need to rest in Him and to know Him and to be joined with Him and to be one with Him.
Yeah, and gluttony is just not.
And gluttony pushes that away. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Until next time.